Welcome to another episode of my Python tutorial series. My name is Eliaza and you are watching Lego Academy. So in our last tutorial episode, we talked about binding functions and we said that binding functions are functions that allow us to be able to detect user input using the keyboard and mouse in order for us to execute a program. So there are functions that allow us to detect user inputs using the keyboard and mouse in order to execute a program. So we saw that explicitly in the last tutorial video. So now to take us further in this tutorial series, you can remember when we were the last tutorial I did about my banking project, I said that I was going to upgrade it. I was going to implement the message box widget in it such that when the user tries to withdraw from the account and he doesn't have sufficient balance, it will display a pop-up dialog box telling the user insufficient amount. And when the user performs a successful login or a successful account creation, a dialog box also pops up to tell him the success. And I also said that I was going to create a scenario whereby our data in our JSON file will be displayed in a table. So I'm also going to implement the TreeView as well in this project. So without further ado, let's get started. Now the first thing I want to do is to come to my account info page. So as we can see, the account info page is what allows us to display these details, getting the person's information from the database and then displaying it on this graphical user interface. But before that, I want to create a button that allows me to be able to see all the already available information in the database. Now, I'm going to create that button in my login screen. So, without wasting much time, what I will do, I will just copy this last code for the sign up button here. As you can see, I will copy it and I will paste it directly under. So, I can just call it account detail. So, I will perform a multiple edit so that I can save time. I'll come here and say account details. And after that, I can come here and say account details. Okay, so that's it. So now for now, I'm going to give it none so that when I click on this button, I don't call that function. So I will give it the none command for now. Now, right under here, I'm going to create another function that will serve as a container to hold the screen displaying the user information in a table format. So I'm going to use my the TreeView widget to display the user information in a table format, getting the data from the JSON file and displaying them in a table form. So I'll come here and say table data. The table data, and of course, you want to create a window screen, tkinter.tk, and after that, you want to give it a title. I'll say window.title. Now call it table account information or account data rather. So account data, now give it a size window.geometry. Now give it 300 by 400. And after that, I'm going to create my tree view. I'll just call it tree. See, so now the tree view is inside the TTK module. So you want to import TTK. So you want to say from tkinter import TTK. TTK is a sub module in my tkinter module. So it's a sub module in my tkinter module. So after that, so I'll come here and say tree. I'll say tk.tree view. Now it's going to be on this window screen. So it will be there. And after that, I will now park it to a particular place on my window screen. So I'll say park and I'll say side. So if you can remember, I explained this parameter and I said it allows us to specify exactly where we want to place, exactly where we are trying to place a widget on a window screen. And I would say fill is equal to tick enter dot both. So I want it to fill both sides of the window screen. Then after that, I want to create a scroll bar. I'll say tick enter dot scroll bar. Now this scroll bar obviously will be on the window screen, and then I'll give it an orientation orient of tick enter dot vertical. And after that, I'll come here and say scroll dot pack. So I'm going to pack it. I'll say side is equal to tick enter dot right as well. And I'll say fill, and I will allow it to fill the y-axis alone, just the y-axis. That's it. Now, while I'm doing that, I need to ensure that this scroll bar has the permission to scroll over the tree view in case we have an overflow. So I will come here and I will say command. So if you can still remember, I've already talked about this. So dot y view. So I said y view and then the y scroll command, they go together in order to make a multi-purpose or a multiple line of text widget to be able to be scrollable. So in order to attach this scroll bar or to bind my scroll bar to my tree view, I will need to say command is equal to tree.yview. And in order to ensure that this scroll bar scrolls vertically according to that orientation, I will need to call this TreeView and then apply the Y scroll command and then use the set function of my scroll bar to ensure that that scroll bar can scroll vertically on my TreeView. Right. So after that, I want to now come here and say tree, open a square bracket, and then say columns, specifying the number of columns I'm going to have. Now, if you look at this table, you will discover that we have 5 columns. So I'll just come here and say 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. So that's what I would say. And I'll come and say tree again, open a square bracket. I'll say show is equal to heading. So I've already explained what these mean. So headings means that you want to see all the headings being displayed, all the titles. And after that, you come here and say tree.column. You now specify, you give each column a number. So I'll say 1, I'll say width, I'll give it a width of 90. You can make it bigger than that if you so wished. 90. Now come here and I'll say anchor. So I said anchor allows us to specify the orientation of the text, the column title text. So I will say tick enter dot center to place it at the center. So to save myself the stress of typing it again and again, I'll just copy it and paste it a couple of times according to the number of columns that I'm going to have. Alright, so after doing that, I'll now come here and specify the headings also. I'll say tree.heading. Then after that, I also say 1, now pass the text, specifying what text I want to show. So serial number, that's what I want to show, and I will just copy it a few more times and paste it and also change the number. So I'm sure you already know that this heading and this my column, they go together. So according to the number specified, that will be the column assigned to that heading. So obviously I gave 1 here, so it's assigning this very first column to this heading. So I'll just come here and change them respectively. So I will say name. Instead of saying serial number, I'll just say ID. So name, balance, so balance, then email, and then pin. So email, come down here, say pin. All right. So it's something we have already done before. Now I want to use the zip function. So there's a function in Python called zip that allows us to be able to iterate over two data structures at the same time. So it could either be iterating over a list or a dictionary, or over a list and a tuple at the same time. That's what it does. It allows us to iterate over both of them at the same time. So I can just come here and say for index, I want to iterate over the index position, that is numbering each row as I insert it into a table. And I also want to be able to be able to number each of my rows. That is to get the key so that I can access the value of each of my row. So I'll just come here and say data in zip. Zip. Able to iterate over range. So I'll specify the range function, and I will pass the index position. So I'm starting from 1. I'll come here. I'll just say len. So as I insert into my database, I want to be able to specify that it will be the size of my database of the number of keys that will enable me to continuously number each of my rows in my table. So you can do the math, or you can figure out the logic. But basically what I'm trying to say is that the range is going to start from 1 and get to the number of keys I have in that database. So that it's numbering it, it will map to each row being inserted into that table. I can just come here after that, put a parenthesis. So now normally we know that when you are trying to iterate over a list range or some numerical values in a range, we know that it does not get to the destination. So in order for you to get to that destination, you want to come here and say +1. So this will allow us to get to the destination. Now, the next one I'm trying to iterate over is going to be the keys. So I'll just come here and say self dot data info dot keys, self dot data info dot keys, and then I'll just come here and I'll just say tree dot insert. Now just open the double quotes, just come here and say take enter dot end. I'll just come here and say text l dot str, and then I'll just specify the index. So the index I'm trying to, so as I'm starting the iteration, this will tell me line 1, line 2, like that. Now come here and say values. So you can just go back to the tree view so that you can understand what I'm saying. But basically, this is something we have already done. As I'm inserting into this tree view to create a table, it is going to be displaying each value like that, one after the other, numbering each of them one after the other. And after that, I can come here. So because I'm trying to display the ID first, I'll just come here and say self dot info data info, open a square bracket, and I'll specify the data, which will be the index, obviously, and say that it is the ID I am trying to get. So let me see the name I gave it in my dictionary so that you would know. So the name is, so I just gave it, so we can't actually access the ID actually, so that was my mistake. So instead of accessing the ID, I want to use this index. So I want to be able to use the index to represent the ID. So I'll just say self. So I wouldn't say self, right? I'll say string. I'll just pass the index in the parentheses so that it can display that for me. And after that, I'll put a comma. And I'll say self dot data info, open a square bracket, and then I can just come here and see data, open another square bracket. I'll just see name. Then you come here again, put a comma, and the next one, self dot data info again. Open another square bracket, see data. So data, then the next one is balance. Balance, put a comma again, see self dot data info. So because I'm trying to target each value of the key in that dictionary, that's why I'm doing all this. Open a square bracket, say data again, and then I'm going to access the email and then the pin. The email, put a comma. So I'll just copy it like this, highlight it, a comma, and then paste. Pin. So pin. All right, so that is basically what we have. So after that, you want to now come here and then call your main loop. So I'll just call my main loop, come outside of the for loop, and then I'll come outside of the for loop. I'll now say window dot main loop. All right, so now this function, I'm going to pass it to this button here, this command. So I'll just come here, delete this none, and say lambda self dot table data. So that is it. So that when I click on this button, it's going to display. So let us test it out to see how far or what we have done so far before we implement the logic and all that. So I'll just click on play, and I can just come here and say account detail, and you see that I get my TreeView, and it automatically fetches everything from my JSON file. And if I should make it smaller, you see that it activates the scrolling ability. All right, so now let us create a dialog box such that if I enter a wrong information or the wrong information, it's going to give me an error. All right, so that will now bring us back to this our main screen, the login screen. It's going to bring me here. So before, while I'm on this login screen, I have to ensure. So initially, the name entry was not there, so I don't want to jump because I did the video before, but I was not too audible, so I deleted the video. So I'm redoing it again. So I had already done it, so trying to make a clearer video. All right, so in order for you to be able to access, because we want a situation whereby this window screen that will be displayed, the function that controls the displaying of this window screen, we want to create a situation whereby if the condition or if the person trying to sign in, if the name exists in that JSON file, then it's going to open up this window screen. But if the name is not in existence, it will give you an error. So that's why I came here. I have to come here and ensure that this name entry is globally accessible by another function in this class. So now the function that allows us to display this data is my account info function. That's what I'm going to use. Now I will have to come here and I will create a conditional statement, and I'll say if myself dot data info, and I will open a square bracket. Now obviously I will need to get the ID first of all, I'll say str or str, yes, and I'll open a parenthesis and I'll say id entry dot get. So as I'm getting the information and checking if name is equivalent to the name that you are typing, you come here and say, so because I've also made this entry globally accessible to every function, so I'm going to be able to access it from there. So its name entry is globally accessible. So I'll just come back here and I'll just say, so because I'm retrieving it from that place, I'll just say str name entry dot get. So if they are equivalent, put a colon. You want to now indent this code to fall under the condition. You want to indent it all the way down here. And after that, you also want to display, or rather, you want to display a success message first before you proceed with any GUI. So I can just come here and say message to message box dot show info, message box dot show info, just say success. Then just come here and say successfully logged in. Okay. Now, if for some reason you do not enter the correct information, you can come here and say else. You say message box show error. The error incorrect info. Incorrect info. All right. So let us try to log in. Now, one thing you should know is that when you are trying to check for a condition, I did not even explain that. You want to make sure that the value on the left hand side is correct, is true. You are evaluating this value against this value. So this one has to be true. So it simply means that when I'm logging in, as you enter in the correct ID, the ID must be in existence. So this is what you are evaluating it against. This one can either be true or false. Once this one is false, obviously we know that the code within this conditional statement will not get executed, and the code in the else conditional statement will get executed. But if what is here on the left hand side is equivalent to what is on the right hand side, then this code will get executed. So that's what we're trying to say. So looking at our database, I want to log in is to Alex, but I want to enter a wrong information. So I'll just come here and say John. Now I'll come and say 1. So there's no John at the 1 ID. So if I say login, say I get incorrect info. All right. Then if you want to now enter in the correct info, Alex, you say login. That says successfully logged in. And when you say OK, it opens up the GUI for you, showing Alex's information. Hope you understand that. So that brings us to the end of this episode. So if you liked my video, please hit that like button. If you feel like this content will be of importance to someone else, your friends, please share. And if you want to encourage me to keep on doing more content like this, please hit that subscribe button. Till we meet again, it's goodbye for now.